Hello and welcome to the fourth instructional video for the digital version of Fury at Midway. And in this video we're going to have a look at creation of a Japanese Dmcv fleet and the procedure for turn 4, which is the night turn. So of the 7-turn game, the first 3 turns I think are June the 4th, and then there's the night turn, and then the final 3 turns, 5, 6 and 7 are June the 5th. So we'll have a look at the night turn when there are some specific rules for air operations and the possibility of a surface battle, which we'll see as well. So the summary of the game as it stands at the moment, this is just a game I knocked up with various mechanisms in place to make sure that we could see some of the things we want to see. So I made sure that there was a Japanese carrier with 2 hits, and that's this carrier here, Akagi, with the 2 damage markers, and that means that it can be split off from the main carrier fleet into what's called a Dmcv fleet, and that fleet can then move independently and head for the board edge in order to avoid the Americans sinking it and gaining a victory point. So the situation at the moment is that Hiryu and Soryu are sunk, so it's as things stand, a 4-0 lead for the Americans in this particular game, but that's not really of that much importance in this particular video. One thing you can also do at the beginning of beginning of turn 4 is play card 5, which is the naval bombardment. So I guess this is where the Japanese surface battleships and cruisers have sailed up to Midway Island under cover of darkness and are firing their guns at the island in order to try to take out some of the airfield infrastructure and so on. So if I play yes, then we can roll a die. You basically roll a die and half it, and that's how many points are deducted from the Midway garrison, this track up here. So we got a 3, which is rounded down, rounded down is 1, so that would reduce the garrison from 6 to 5. You can see that there. Now, on turn 4, the night turn, the fleets get to move twice as far, so the rules are that Dmcv comes on at the beginning of the fleet movement phase and can then move 2 hexes. So it starts off wherever the current carrier fleet is and can then move 2. It's obviously going to move over to the board edge. It exits from row A, which it can do next turn, and you have to select which carrier you want to be your Dmcv. In this case, there's only one carrier with 2 damage points, so that's Akagi, so select that one. And then we have the normal fleet movement, except with the caveat that this time there are 2 fleets to move. The MIF, the Midway Invasion Force, comes on the board, and it can start in any of these 7 hexes. It's got to move to within 1 hex of Midway Island, one of these 3, by the end of the game in order to carry out the invasion. So it's going to have to move there on turn 5, here on turn 6, and one of these 2 on turn 7. So it's really got to start over here somewhere in order to get there by the end of the game. And I kind of hard-coded the American fleet to not move this turn, so I can move the Japanese fleet into its hex, because both fleets moving around and the hidden movement, it's pretty unlikely they'll end up in the same hex. And the Americans are normally going to want to avoid surface action unless they're in desperate straits in the game, because they get a -4 DRM on their die roll. The Japanese get a -2. So you roll a die, deduct the DRM, and that's how many hits you inflict on the enemy fleet. So let's have a look at that. So the US fleet hasn't moved, so it stays put. We get a surface battle. So let's see what happens here. And both sides have rolled a 5. Japan has a -2, so that will be 3 hits. US has a -4 DRM, so that's 1 hit. So then we go on to the damage allocation screen. As per the rules, the IJN player actually allocates all of the damage to both fleets, which is slightly unusual, but that's how it is. So what we get then is a screen comes up showing which carriers are eligible to receive damage. Since there's only 1 Japanese carrier left in this fleet, the Akagi is sailing off, as we saw earlier, towards the board edge, and Hiryu and Soryu are sunk. So only Kaga remains. So the single point of damage inflicted by the US has to go on Kaga, so we'll do that one first. And then there are 3 points to be allocated to the American carriers, so it probably makes sense to sink one of them. So we'll do that. We'll sink the Enterprise. There we go. Enterprise was sunk in the surface action. Kaga has 1 point of damage. fleets in the same hex, the rules are the Americans have to retreat away, so they've retreated away after the surface action. And then we come to night air operations, which are slightly different to the normal air operations. You can't fly any airstrikes, but what you can do is move your planes. Well, you have to move your planes back to the hangar if they're out performing. Well, they were performing any strikes at the end of game turn 3. That's not the case for the Japanese. And if there are any strikes in return box 2, they have to perform a night landing. There are some American strike planes in the return 2 box for them, because they just hit the Japanese fleet in turn 3 before I started the video. So what I can do then is put some of the Japanese fighter units back up to cap. I could have moved them onto the flight deck, but there's already one unit there in one remaining flight deck box that is undamaged. So that's the end of what the Japanese can do for their night operations, and then we come to the US air operations. And as we can see, there are 5 steps of strike planes in the return 2 box, and they roll a die and see if any planes are lost. Well, they roll pretty well here, because the landing is successful on a 1 to 4, and 5 or 6 is a step loss, and they've all rolled a 4 or less, so the Americans don't lose any steps there. Good die rolling there. And I can actually probably, I was going to say I could show what they actually do, but they've already moved their, I was going to show the American units to see what they would have done, but they would have moved all their units back to their carriers and exactly what I did with the Japanese units. They would have allocated some units to cap and put some on the flight deck and all that kind of stuff. So, but the Americans here have played towed to a friendly port, which is their card number 1, which basically means that any sunk carrier can be towed away, which in a similar fashion to the Dmcv carriers means that the Japanese do not receive a VP for this CV. So my efforts to sink the Enterprise in that surface action were all in vain on this occasion, and that means at the end of turn 4, the end of the night turn, the turn summary is still the 2 victory points for the United States for sinking the 2 Japanese carriers, and none for the Japanese. It would have been 4-1. So I think we'll call it a day. We'll end it there, and I think we'll probably make one more video, which would be the end of game Midway invasion, and then that'll be it for the series of videos. So once again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.